This is my friend Shelley Zipper, and I'm Miriam Russell, and we're sitting here on the shores of Lake George in the Weowaka Women's Center, and we're looking back on the year. This is July 15th, 2020, and it was a very challenging spring in this year for you, as it was for the whole country, the whole world anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You had a bout with COVID-19.
Yes, I
You
did.
want to tell us a bit about it?
Sure. For me, my experience began as a head cold. I still don't know whether it really was a head cold or not. It wasn't even a bad one. It was Monday, March 9th in the evening when I had symptoms of this head cold. I had gone to work. I'm a high school teacher. And I went to school on Tuesday primarily to set up my classroom so that I could stay home on Wednesday and Thursday, because at the time everybody was saying if you don't feel well, stay home.
So you think the public schools in New York City will be closing that soon?
Yes, as a matter of fact, the teachers had been complaining that schools were still open. The mayor had been saying things like, you can't be in groups of larger than 500, and my school had 6,500 people in it. So the teachers' unions were getting stronger and stronger in demanding that schools be closed, and I started hearing some noises in that direction. So I went to school that Friday. I still didn't feel great, but as far as a head cold went, it wasn't much of a head cold. And I wanted to pick up some materials and say goodbye to the kids. So I went to school on Friday, and by the way, some of the parents were already keeping their kids home from school at that point. There was very poor attendance that day, and the whole week it had been dwindling off rather. So I did, and I went. Before I went to my apartment from work, I decided to stop at a Dwayne Reed's and pick up some stuff. And I found, to my dismay, that, I forgot to mention that my cold turned into a terrible headache that day.
Yes.
Very bad headache, and I don't get headaches very often. And I just couldn't shake it. And that was unusual for me. So, anyway, when I was leaving Dwayne Reed with a few items plus my school stuff, I realized that I was feeling incredibly weak, and I didn't even know how I was going to walk 3 blocks to my apartment. I thought of even getting a car service for 3 blocks. I thought of tapping the shoulders of strangers to ask them to carry my stuff. I mean, it was pathetic. It took me a long time to walk these 3 blocks.
But you did walk it all by yourself.
Well,
You
finally
made it.
I got home. It took a long time. I got home. I happened to run into 2 of my neighbors who lived on the first floor, and I looked at them, and they looked at me and said, "What?" And I said, "I feel terrible." And they said, "You look terrible." So one of the women happened to be a physician's assistant. Anyway, I went home. Next day in the morning, I ran into them again, and I told them I felt better, but that evening I ran into them again. This is Saturday now. This is March 12th, 14th.
Your neighbors in your apartment house.
Yes, the same 2 women. I happened to keep running into them because they're on the first floor and their kids played together. And they said, "You look terrible." They said, "You have to get tested. Not just for you, but for us too." So I said, "Well, how am I going to get tested? Nobody's getting the test." And the physician's assistant said, "Go to City MD, they're giving the test." I said, "I don't think so, but I'll go." So on Sunday, I went.
In a taxi?
No, I walked again, and it was very close to where I was at the Dwayne Reed's. I didn't know how I would have the energy, but I got there, and I didn't have to wait too long. They took me in a back room, and first the woman says to me, "You look terrible." I said, "Well, I feel terrible." She gave me the test for the flu, and I tested negative. So I said to myself, I definitely must have COVID, because if this isn't the flu, because I thought it was the flu, um, it's got to be COVID, because I really don't feel well. So she did give me the COVID test. She gave me 2 Tylenol to take. She had told me that I would have to go to the hospital in an ambulance.
Pardon,
And
in the hospital, in the ambulance?
She had told me
Yes.
that I would have to take an ambulance and go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a dog, and I had to arrange for dog care. So she had left the room after I took the 2 Tylenol. And I got on the phone. I called a woman who takes care of my dog. She agreed to take care of it. I called a girlfriend who agreed that I would get a car service and she would take the dog down to the lady.
So your dog was going to be taken care of.
Exactly, because I couldn't do anything until the dog was taken care of.
Yes.
So she comes back in.
And you live alone.
I live alone,
Yeah.
exactly. And she says to me, "Oh my God, you look great." And I actually felt fine. She said, "Those 2 Tylenol really perked you up." She said, "I'm going to go back out and talk to my colleagues again." And she goes back out, she comes back in, she says, "We think you can do at-home care, inpatient care." She says, "But you have to promise me that if anything goes south, you'll go to the emergency room."
Let's see now, you had a test. When did you find out the results?
Not till the end of the week. That was Sunday.
But you were so sick that she wanted to put you in the hospital, right?
Well, we assumed that I had it.
Yeah.
So it was March 15th, and this is the week before things went crazy in New York City. It was still doable, nothing was crowded yet. And so that week happened to be the week that the teachers were asked to come into school to do the remote learning training. And I was sick that week, and also I had a medical note from them. Even though they didn't know if I had COVID yet, they excused me from work that week, so I was covered. I could not possibly have gone in. I had the night chills, I had the night sweats. In the beginning, I didn't have a working thermometer. I didn't know what my temperature was. I never made it through a whole day without taking a few naps. My friends got me a thermometer finally that worked, and I would take my temperature, and I was between, well, the lowest was 99, but I was usually 101, 102. I even hit 103 a couple of times.
That is high. Yeah.
So I was, one of the wonderful things that did happen, because I do live alone, and that was the only thing that really scared me, because I would take a deep breath every day and my lungs were fine, even though I did test for pneumonia. A slight case, just a very slight case of pneumonia, because they tested me for that, which is a symptom of COVID, obviously. We know that now. We know a lot more now than we did on that first week of March, because things just snowballed so much. Anyway, my building just got together, and we created this text circle with our phone numbers, and every day somebody would check in on me, sometimes more than one person, and they would say, "Oh, I'm going to the store, what can I pick you up?" And also the woman who took my dog down for me, a very close friend of mine, she has 2 girls that she is the legal guardian for. Not girls, young women, really. And they would go shopping for me. They were the ones that brought me the thermometer.
Oh, lovely.
So even though I was self-quarantined, I felt phenomenally cared for, plus my own, family, my mother, my brother, my sister. One thing I did not have the strength for was talking on the phone. It was incredibly difficult for me to do that. But I could text and I could email. So I kept in touch with everybody, but I tried to call one family member a day or close to every day. Usually my brother, who was a doctor, and he was, the most concerned. No, they were all concerned, but he was differently concerned because he had different knowledge.
Sure.
So I would just try to rally my strength once a day to call one of them, and I knew that they would convey whatever information I gave whoever I spoke to the rest anyway, that Friday night I did get a phone call that my test was positive, which was obviously no surprise to me whatsoever. And unlike many other people, I did not lose my sense of smell or taste. It might have been a little, what do you call it? Just a little off the way when you get a cold. Sometimes your sense of taste feels a little different.
But you,
I never lost it, my sense of smell or taste.
what about eating?
But I couldn't eat. I completely lost my appetite. I was eating like a half a piece of bread, a fruit cup, and a small cup of applesauce a day. And every day I was increasingly hungry and unable to eat, and I was barely drinking, and I had these high fevers. So that Saturday, I asked one of my friends in the building, the physician's assistant, if she would call an ambulance, because I wanted to get a saline drip for my dehydration, and I needed help eating, which is kind of funny because I never miss a meal in my life. So
you knew you were sick.
That's how I knew I was sick.
Uh,
So she did. She called the ambulance. I had to take an ambulance because I was toxic, and they came for me on Saturday morning. I went to I've never in my I never get sick. I am shocked that I got this thing because in my entire life, and I'm 66 years old, I've only had the flu twice. I get head colds every now and then, but that's it. So anyway, it's the first time in my life in an emergency room. The first time in my life in an ambulance in reverse room. So
we missed that. We have a little competition on the lake here.
okay.
It's the first time in your life that
in an ambulance
in an
and
ambulance.
in the emergency room. And as I said before, this tsunami had not yet come. It was coming the next week. Italy was having the tsunami. And so the emergency room was not crowded. They took me, a week later they would have laughed at me and just said, oh, just eat some food and drink something.
You think? Yeah.
But anyway, I go to the emergency room. Everybody was incredibly nice. And I didn't have to wait too long. A woman came and got me and put me in a little room, and then a doctor came in.
Which hospital was this?
This is, it used to be called Methodist Hospital in Park Slope, but now it's called New York Presbyterian.
Oh, yeah.
And the doctor comes in, and don't ask me where I got this from, but I say to him, I want a saline drip, and I can't eat.
Oh, boy.
He says, how about if I'm like, nope, I came all the way here. I want a saline drip because I'm dehydrated and I need help to eat. He says, okay. So a woman comes in and hooks me up to 2 different saline drips.
2 different ones,
Yeah.
one on each arm?
I can't remember how
Okay.
that went.
Yeah.
But anyway, it just went one at a time. Or maybe it was 1 bag at a time. And it took a long time. It took an hour for the 1 bag. The doctor comes in. I said, nope, I want more than 1 bag. I know what I'm talking about.
Had your friend in the physician's assistant in your apartment house suggested this?
No, I told her.
All
I
right.
don't know where I'm getting this stuff from. I read murder mysteries, but not medical journals.
Yeah.
So, anyway, then after an hour and a half, when I've had 1.5 bags, I did feel better. And the doctor comes in. I said, yeah, this is good enough, And he says, I said, but what about my inability to eat? Because how can I get well if I can't eat? Because I'm so weak and so hungry. He said, don't worry, I already sent a prescription to your pharmacy for anti-nausea pills. I said, well, I'm not really nauseous. He says, I said that to myself, or whatever. But at any rate, it was already filled before I even left the hospital. So then I said to him, okay, so am I taking an ambulance back? How am I getting home? He says, you call a cab.
Whoa.
I'm like, call a cab,
The emergency room doctor ordered you a prescription which was ready for you.
Yes, and he was just such a lovely man. And I thanked him. My brother is a doctor, and my brother had all these questions for me, and I knew I wasn't going to know any of the answers, even if the doctor told me. So I said to the doctor, would you mind talking to my brother for a few minutes? He said no. So luckily I was able to reach my brother on the phone.
Great.
And he spoke to him for like several minutes. I thanked him when he got off the phone, and he says, oh, I had a great time. I got to use all my medical jargon, and he understood every word I said. I said, that's good, because I didn't understand any of it, and my brother had to translate it later for me.
Yeah.
So and I thanked him at that time for being so kind and patient. He says, well, I didn't think I was very patient with you. I thought I was very short with you in the beginning. He said, no, you weren't short with me. You just didn't want to do what I wanted you to do. And then when you agreed to do what I wanted you to do, everything was fine.
Wouldn't you know it?
So I had asked him how I was getting home. He said, oh, you just call a cab, which I thought was so funny because I had to take an ambulance to get there, you know.
Right.
So meanwhile, you know, when you have COVID, you know, COVID means you never have to change. If you live by yourself, you live in your yoga pants or your sweatpants or whatever. And I'm wearing these yoga pants, and it happened to be like 30 degrees outside. I was freezing. I go outside. There's one lonely cab driver, and I have this mask. It wasn't the kind with the elastic. It was the tie kind, which I just couldn't negotiate. I would tie my hair up into the... I had to literally cut them out of my hair. That's how badly I did. So I'm holding the mask in place because I can't tie it. And I go out from a hospital, and this cab driver is actually happy to see me.
Oh, yes.
This guy doesn't speak any English. He understands like 2 sentences. I said, go straight and turn right.
Okay.
And he let me stop at the pharmacy. The pills were ready, which I had ascertained before I left. And I picked him up, and then he dropped me off in my apartment. I gave him a nice tip, and he was the happiest guy in the world. Anyway, keep running into this neighbor of mine who's the PA. She gives me, thank God, some masks with the elastic on it because could not deal with the other one. Anyway, then I have to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. I mean, no, I'd already been quarantining for 2 weeks. I'm on my 2nd week now.
In your yoga pants.
Well, I did change. But I did take the pills as directed, and it did enable me to eat. And that was the turning point for me, because then I could start getting some strength back.
Yes.
I was still sleeping a lot. I didn't sleep like a million hours a night. It was like a normal night's sleep, but throughout the day, every 3 hours or 4 hours, I had to go to sleep. But by the following Monday, which is when we started the remote teaching, I was lucid. I was fine. I could do it.
Great.
I could not have done it the week before when the teachers were going into the building to get trained. But I was fine. I could attend by the following Monday. So this date is now about the 16th and 7th is March 23rd. By the end of the week, I was fever-free. I wasn't eating a lot, but
This is the end of the 3rd week?
No.
Earlier.
Wait. The week with my head cold that turned into the headache that I was at work off and on, that was the 1st week. 2nd week, yes, this is the end of the 3rd week. Yes, by the end of the 3rd week, I was fever-free. And so by the following Sunday, which is now March 29th, 2 weeks since I got tested, I could leave quarantine because I'd been fever-free for 3 days, and that's what the requirement is. But I was too weak in the legs. Even though I walked around my apartment, the idea of walking outside, it was like a huge barrier to me. And day after day after day, because I wanted to get my dog back.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and
the dog's not with you.
I would get tired thinking about what I was going to do that day. And by the time I had to finish the thought, I was already too tired to do it. So it took me almost another week to get out of my house. And in fact, at one point, I wondered whether it was psychological or physical. I honestly, I couldn't tell. However, I finally was able to leave that Saturday. I pushed myself. I went to a store. I was out for an hour and 45 minutes, and I was exhausted. That was a Saturday. The following Monday, I did get my dog. And it helped me regain my strength because I had to walk her. They weren't long walks. She's an old dog. But it probably took me a month to get all of my stamina back. Now it is July, whatever we are. Feel 100% recovered. I can swim. I can walk. Better than I could before. Honestly, not the swimming, but the walking. So I feel very fortunate. However, I do know that many, 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 many people had COVID the same way that I did, either for a day, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think the majority of the people had COVID the way I did. And then some small percentage has a very long recovery loop, and unfortunately another percentage pass away. But one of the best parts of this experience was how in each phase or each moment I revealed my status to different groups of people. Every time I revealed my status, I thought that people were going to be angry with me for possibly exposing them to it when I didn't know. The first group of people I exposed myself to were my students and their parents through an email. I emailed everybody, and I told them that I had, the coronavirus.
You wanted them to know that their students might be exposed.
Yeah. And I was
So
bracing myself for a wrath of anger, and I got nothing but support. As a matter of fact, one of my students' mother had COVID. I mean, for all I know, I could have gotten it from her daughter. I mean, who knows, Anyway, I don't think, to my knowledge, I didn't infect any of my students to my knowledge. Some of them did later come down with COVID, as well as members of their family. The second group I outed myself to was my department. And again, I was afraid.
Oh, we're having some competition from a calliope now. I'm going to try.
So, as I was saying, then I revealed my status to the entire English department. Again, I thought they would be furious with me. How could you come to work, even though, of course, I didn't know I had the coronavirus. I thought I had a head cold. And I even had thrown my arm around somebody who I later found out was pregnant. But anyway, thank God she's fine. Everybody was fine. I got nothing but love and support from my department.
Yes.
Then the next thing that happened was we had a faculty meeting on Zoom, and I outed myself to the entire faculty. I'm talking about 300 teachers. Other teachers had in fact been ill. As a matter of fact, we had a teacher who passed away, supposedly from a heart attack, but I do believe, honestly, that he had COVID because it was very sudden, not anticipated, and this is a pattern with unexpected deaths. I believe he had COVID because it was exactly when I was sick and several other colleagues were sick. So I was just saying that I also told my entire faculty about my status, and I got nothing but tons of beautiful emails and Facebook messages and text messages. And then the last frontier was Facebook, and I revealed on Facebook my story, and again, nothing but fantastic feedback that I'm still getting today. Shelley, how you doing? How you feeling? And so one of the positive things I have to say that came out of this was the willingness of people to help me and to reach out to me, even people that didn't live near me, when they would find out, say, tell me what I can do, what do you need? And I'd say, don't worry, my neighbor's right here, and my friend's who she's a legal guardian for. I would say I'd like to get an orange. They'd buy me like a sack of oranges. They'd load up their little shopping carts and make deliveries to me. My neighbors would leave me little presents at my door, outside my door. They would make me meals. They would, one woman even cooked me a Passover meal, even though that was after I got better because I couldn't go to Maryland to be with my family. Somebody was defrosting the ice cream from their wedding. Did I want some ice cream? I mean, I would literally get little presents by my door. It was so touching to me. And honestly, even though I'm a friendly person, I wasn't that close to any of my neighbors, and I was really surprised at this and incredibly touched. And it has, brought me closer to a lot of my neighbors. But the humanity, the good spirit that was there, that's the takeaway for me. How many people reached out and offered heartfelt support and still do to this day?
At the end of this day, as we are right now, that's really the beautiful part of the story. Thank you so much,
You're very
Shelley.
welcome.
Bye bye.
Thank you.